It's still December, and that means DOS-cember. So this entire month, a group of YouTubers are creating videos about DOS and DOS applications. Well, this channel is actually always about DOS and FreeDOS and our favorite DOS applications and games that we loved. In fact, for this video, I wanted to go over my favorite example of DOS applications, and that's spreadsheets. So growing up in the 70s, 80s, and into the 1990s, I loved math. I loved science. And in fact, when I went to college, I was a physics undergraduate. And that meant that I used spreadsheets a lot on DOS because that would help me to do lab analysis or run simulations or do any other kind of work I needed to do with the numbers. And my favorite spreadsheet in college was one called As Easy As. It was a shareware spreadsheet by a company called Trias. Shareware means you could download the spreadsheet, you could use it for free, but if you liked it, you had to send back a registration fee of some kind, usually not very big, and that would give you access to the full program. Since then, Trias has actually released As Easy As free software, which means you can go to their website, you can download a copy of As Easy As, and even get a registration code, activation code. You can also get a copy of the manual. I'll put a link to all that in the video description. Now, I've always said As Easy As is a modern feeling spreadsheet. Even though it's the 1990s, it's still a modern feeling spreadsheet. And if I didn't need to exchange data with other people, I probably could do most of my spreadsheet work in As Easy As. So I wanted to do an example here to kind of demonstrate that and do a spreadsheet that I did fairly recently. So outside of this, I'm also an adjunct faculty. I teach, among other things, management information systems. And so what we did this semester was did a deep dive on Word and Excel. So let's do one of the spreadsheets that we did in our labs. So if you took my MIS class, you're probably going to recognize this, by the way, as Excel Lab 5. Everybody else, we're going to do a sample spreadsheet. We're going to create some random data to simulate a gradebook. And then at the end, we're going to do some analysis on that gradebook. So let's look at using As Easy As to do a gradebook. So let's go ahead and bring up As Easy As. And there's the information about the program. And then it brings it up into just a regular spreadsheet. Now, yeah, these DOS spreadsheets, they still look like modern spreadsheets today. They've got columns that are listed in letters, rows are listed in numbers, and each cell is listed or addressed as the column letter and row number, so things like A1. I'll do another video about the history of spreadsheets, but just for now, just remember, this is going to look very similar to modern spreadsheets that you might use today. So let's create some random data. I'm going to go ahead and create some just a representation of the class that I taught. Now, every week we had different quizzes. So I'm going to just type in quizzes. And then how many quizzes did I have? Well, I had one every week. But let's just do an example here of just 5 weeks. And then every week we also had an online exam. It wasn't a very big exam. But we had an exam every week as well. And so we'll do, let's just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, same number of weeks. And outside of that, we also had these outside assignments. So at the end of the, so let's type in assignments. So at the end of the Word unit, we did a resume assignment. At the end of the Excel unit, we did a spreadsheet assignment. And at the end of the semester, we did a final paper. Now I'm kind of running out of room here, so let's go ahead and change my column width. That's something you can do in these spreadsheets, and so we're going to bring up the menu with the slash key. Remember in DOS, they all used slash to bring up the menu, and that goes back to VisiCalc. I'll do another video about the history of spreadsheets, and then I'll talk more about that slash, but here we'll just go ahead and now change the column width. So I can do under Sheet, I want to change the column width, so which is what it happens to be on right now. And then I can change the width or set the width of a single column, but I actually want to do it across a range. So let's do it over here under range. And I want to do from the first column A all the way up to this column I'm on right now. So you need to enter actually a range that's the same kind of range you would use for cell addresses. So we're going to do A1 instead of just A, dot K1. And then how wide do they need to be? Those I can make a little smaller, so we'll make those width of 4, and we're not going to skip any columns. And so you can see now I've got, I still have some full width over here on the assignments, but over here on each of the quizzes and exams, they're all a little quite narrow, so I can actually see everything on screen at one time. And down here, let's go ahead and enter my students. And how many students do we have? Let's just enter in 9 students. Now we're going to simulate some data here. So we're going to put in some fake data. So rather than me sort of typing in some fake data, let's let the spreadsheet do all that work. So I'm just going to do over here so you can kind of see the full value. So there's a random number function in this spreadsheet called @rand. Functions are always start with that and character. And rand will give me a random value between 0 and 1. And if I hit F9, you can see that it's going to recalculate that number. It's always going to pick a random number between 0 and 1. So if I go over here and I can now put in a function, a logical function using the if function that will test a random number function. So I'm going to start with @if. And so if takes 3 options. The first option is a test. And so rand. So what I found is that the quizzes, students pretty much got full points on the quizzes. It was 5-point quizzes, or they didn't, because it was pretty straightforward. And it was online, and so sometimes students missed it for other reasons. And so usually 90% of the time they were able to do the quizzes. But just so we can see a little more variation of data, I'm going to say 0.8. And so I'm going to say if that random number is greater than 0.8, then we'll say that's going to happen 20% of the time. And so I'm going to put in a 0 for that. Right? That means they missed it. 20% of the time maybe they missed a quiz. Otherwise, it was full points. And so we'll say 5. And so that's what an if statement looks like, is that the first option is the test. The second option is if that test is true, insert that value. And the third one is if that test is false, insert that value. And so if that random number is going to be greater than 0.8, then it's going to put in a 0, and that means that's only going to happen 20% of the time. Otherwise, it's going to put in 5. So hit enter on that, and you can see that I'm getting the number 5. Let's now copy that. So we'll say copy cell from B3 to B3. I'll just hit enter on that, and we're going to copy it down to the rest of this column. So we'll say B4 ... down to B11. And you can see that sometimes, because these are all random numbers, sometimes I'm getting a 0 in there. And that's good. That means that my random number function is working. So let's go ahead and now copy those quizzes across the rest of the weeks. And so we'll do / copy cell. What do I want to copy from? I want to copy all of these here, B3 to B11. And I want to put it into C3 ... F11. And now it's automatically entered in these random numbers every time calculating a new random number. And so sometimes you're getting these 0s, but most of the time you're getting a 5. So the exams, they were the same week. And so if the students did the exam or did the quiz, they probably were doing the exam. The exams were 10 points, but actually sometimes you can get, they generally got them in the range of like 8 to 10. So let's do another if function here. Oh, before we do that, let's make these static numbers so we're not going to have to recalculate these all the time, right? Every time I hit F9, you can see it's going to regenerate those numbers. And so let's make those static numbers so we don't have to mess with the random numbers anymore. So we're going to do /, and actually in this case not copy, but we're going to do over here, we're going to do a range, and we're going to copy values. So copy, and then copy values. And so I want to copy from. I want to copy this range here. And let's go ahead and just put it down here. It's just a place to have. And you can see up here I've got, my random number values. And then down here they're just numbers. 5, 0, there's a 0, right? So they all been copied as values. And I'm going to just move them on back on top. So we'll do slash. We're now going to move these range of cells. And we're going to select then the range of cells. We'll put it up here on top of my quizzes. And so now up here, now I'm left with just plain numbers. Now the exams, as I said, they were the same week as the quizzes. And so generally if they missed the quiz, they probably missed the exam. And the exams were 10 points and students scored in the range of 8 to 10. So let's go ahead and put in some values for that. So we're going to do another if statement so we can test. And so in this case, if B3 was greater than 0, that meant that they did the quiz. Then we're going to pick a random number between 8 and 10. And so in this case, we're going to say I want this to be an integer when I'm done. So I'm going to say int of random number times 2, and then we're going to add 8 on top of that. And so that should give me a random number between 0 and 2. And we're going to add it to 8, which means I should, in theory, get numbers between 8 and 10. Although, because it's an integer, 0.9999 is not actually going to go to 1, and that's okay. So that actually means we're going to get everything between 8 and 9. And that's fine here for what we're doing. So we'll just hit return on that. Oh, something doesn't like that. Oh yeah, I need the, what if it was false? Well, if it was false, if the B3 was not greater than 0, then that means they missed doing the quiz, and so we need to put in a 0 because they missed the exam as well. There we go. Now I can hit return on that. And now that's entered in a random number between 8 and 10. It's an integer in this case. Let's go ahead and copy that. So we'll do slash, to bring up the menu. Copy that cell from, that one cell, and then down to G4 ... to G11. You can see I'm getting some random numbers. If they missed taking the quiz that week, they're also getting a 0 on the exam because we're simulating that they also missed taking the exam. So over here, we'll go ahead and copy that again. So we'll do copy cell, again, this entire range. And that's going to copy to H3 ... K11. So again, I'm generating random numbers, usually between 8 and 10, and unless they got a 0 on their quiz, which we're going to simulate here that they also then missed doing the exam. Now I want to turn these into static numbers, so I don't have to mess with these random numbers all the time, and so we're going to do slash and then range. We're going to copy those values. So we're going to say copy, and I'm going to do copy just the values. So we're going to go ahead and select this range. And I want to put that, we'll just put it down here. And so you can see up here, I've got the functions, but as you go into G12, you can see I'm just getting static numbers down here, right? So it's just been copied as values. And now I want to go ahead and move that back on top. So we're going to do slash and then move. And let's go ahead and select that range. And we'll put it up on top of my exam scores. And so now I've got static numbers simulating exam scores. Now it's getting a little hard to kind of see what are quizzes and what are exams. Let's actually, before we go much further, let's go ahead and change some background colors so we can kind of see what we're doing. So we're going to do, change the background color. So we'll do a slash, and that's going to happen across a range of things. So we're going to go up here under range and then color. And what color do I want? For the headings, let's just do bright white. Oops. Bright white, and we'll do this with sort of a cyan background color. And I'm going to select across this range here, and now I've got bright white with a cyan background. Do a different color here for the exams. Do a slash range color, and let's do a green background in this one. There we go, bright white on green, and then over here slash range color. And let's do this one as bright white on sort of purple background. There we go. Now it's a little bit easier to kind of see what my numbers really are. And then over here for students, we'll make that a different color as well. We'll do slash range color. And this time we'll do a bright yellow, and then we'll put that sort of on a brown background. And we go and select my range. Bright yellow on brown. Beautiful color. All right, so the assignments that they were doing, these were 100 points. And so we'll say, we'll do that same kind of simulation, but we don't have to simulate if they were there or not. In this case, we'll actually just assume everybody turned in an assignment. They typically range between 80 and 100 points when they were turning these in. So we'll do a simulation for that. And so we'll say the integer of a random number times 20, and then we're going to start that at 80. So that, in theory, then should give me a random number, an integer random number between 80 and 100, right? Because random is going to be between 0 and 1. We're multiplying that times 20, which gives us a random number between 0 and 20, actually 0 and 19. And then that becomes, because it's an integer, and then we're going to add that to 80. So that gives us a random number that's simulating students taking the final assignment. So we'll just hit enter on that and see the student in theory got an 86. We'll copy that cell from L3 to L3 down to L4 ... L11. And again, we're going to copy that again to M3 ... N11. Now these are random numbers. I want to get rid of that random number function, so I want to do a slash and then range, and I want to copy the values of this range, and we'll just put it down here. So again, up here I've got the random number calculations, and then down here is just static numbers. So we'll go ahead and move those. Move cell. Okay, and we'll put them up here. All right, so now I've sent, oops, I'm missing one. I put it on the wrong one. Let's go ahead and move again up there. All right, so now I've got random numbers that I've created across the entire class. And now let's go ahead and calculate a gradebook on this. So this is kind of the second half of what we're doing. Let's go ahead and add a blank row up here. So I'm going to do a slash, and across my sheet I want to insert a row, and we'll just do it right there. So how many points was each quiz? Each quiz was 5 points. And then each exam was 10 points. And each assignment was 100 points. So what was my maximum number of possible points? So we can do that with the @sum function. And that starts at, in this case, B1 ... to N1. And so 375 possible points. How were students doing? Well, I can, let's look at sort of the average for each week before we actually deal with each student's individual grade. So I can calculate here the average score for each student, or for each week rather. So let's do the average function, AVG, and that's going to be across the range of B4 ... to B12. Remember, because it used to be B3 to B11, but I inserted that top row, so now it's B4 to B12, and then that is my average. And I can now copy that. Now to, we can actually do it across the entire thing. So we can go to C14 dot dot to N14. And now for each cell, we now have an average number of each column. And I can now also go over here and say, and because that's very helpful to see if any one particular week was challenging. And in fact, over here that looks kind of weird because it looks like a number of students missed taking that exam. So I might have done some sort of accommodation there, and that would have given us a similar weirdness over here on this quiz 4. So I probably would have done some sort of accommodation there if I see that all the numbers were a little low. Let's go ahead and calculate each student's possible score. That'll allow us to calculate their grade at the end of the semester. So here I'm going to go ahead and, just like I did up here, let's go ahead and copy this sum calculation to all the students. So I'm going to do a slash copy, and I want that one there. And I'm going to put that into O4 dot dot O12. And so now that's each student's sum across the semester. And if I wanted to see what, for example, what was my maximum, how are students doing? So I might calculate the maximum value across that range would be O4 dot dot to O12. And the minimum value, min, from, again, O4 dot dot to O12. And if I wanted to see the average, I could have just continued this calculation over here. So let's go ahead and copy this cell from there to there. Right. So now I can kind of see what my average looks like, what my maximum and what my minimum values were. Do this all the time as an instructor to kind of see where students are in the class. That's basically gives me my range. My scores are going from 287 up to 345. So let's calculate their final grade. So how would I do that? So I'm going to do that by the calculation of this number divided by this number. But we're going to see that we're going to do it wrong. So we're going to actually start by saying, let's calculate O4 divided by O1. Now that looks right? That's 80%. We'll change the formatting in a bit here, but that's 80%. That should be right? Until we do copy. So if I do a slash copy cell from there down to P5 dot dot P12. Wow, I'm getting a whole bunch of weird numbers because if you notice what's happening is it's translating that calculation. It's not really O4 divided by O1. It's really one cell to the left divided by one cell to the left and 4 above, or 3 above. So as it propagates that calculation down, you can see that it's changing those references. So it's always this number divided by that number, right? So that's why I'm getting error here, because I'm getting a division by 0. These two are dividing by 0 because it's dividing by that blank cell, and this one is dividing by that blank cell. So how do we fix this? So let's go ahead and do F2 to edit, or I could retype the whole thing. It's not that long, but I'm going to do an edit. And I can actually lock off specific parameters using the $sign. It's a prefix. And so if I wanted to always lock off the column O, I would put $1 in front of that. In this case, I'm propagating the calculation down, so the column will never change anyway, so I don't need to have that. Or if I wanted to lock in the row, which in fact in this case I do, I would put $1 in front of the 1. It's always a prefix operator, this $sign. And yes, you can do this on modern spreadsheets today. And so that's what I'm going to do. O4 divided by O$1 and hit enter on that. And so this calculation doesn't change, but if I copy that from P4 to P4 all the way to P5 dot dot to P12, you can see that now it's always locking in that dividing value as O1. Let's go ahead and change the format here so it looks like a percentage. So I'm going to do a slash, And then across a range, I'm going to change the format. I'm going to make that a percentage value. So we'll do 2 digits after the decimal point, and then that range is going to be this range right here. And there you go. So now I've calculated a gradebook using random data. So you can see that I now have, we filled in our random data on the left, and we've calculated the grade values on the right. We've also calculated the averages along the bottom. And so this is a typical use of a spreadsheet. You could do this on any spreadsheet today, but we are doing it in As Easy As. So what did you think about that video? Let me know in the comments below. Before I go, I just wanted to thank everybody on Patreon. You really do make this channel happen, and I appreciate your support. Some of you are sponsoring me at a higher level, and I want to thank you especially for that. So thank you very much. Visit our website at FreeDOS.org. Join us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and consider supporting me on Patreon. Thank you.